I recently finished watching Black Clover, and man do I want to talk about it. Never have I watched a series that's more satisfying and frustrating at the same time. So, to avoid having to scream into a pillow about it, I decided to make this video and lay out my thoughts in a somewhat cohesive manner. But just a disclaimer, I'm not trying to come at people who like the series or tear it down. As you'll come to see, I'm a fan. And because I'm a fan, that's why I felt the need to make this. So, without further ado, let's begin. For those who aren't fully familiar with the series, what can I say about Black Clover? First off, why are you watching this video? It's a battle shonen series that's a relative newcomer on the scene. It's been bringing the magical, medieval fantasy flavored, high energy action since 2015, and really made a name for itself since then. However, it's also a bit of a tricky series to classify in one way or another. In my opinion, Black Clover isn't a series that can be cleanly rated on a traditional scale. So I find it easier just to talk specifically about what's good about it and what's not, so that it's more fair to the series' strong and weak points. And trust me, there are many strong and weak points that intermingle constantly. Also, a lot of the negatives that I bring up might not even be something you personally consider a negative. And that's what's tricky about this. A lot of it is only subjectively good or bad. But what's important to me here is just providing some perspective. So that's what I'll do. Here is why Black Clover is terrible and awesome. Yeah, so the name of the video.
Possible spoilers ahead, obviously.
I'm gonna start out with the good points of the series. Mainly so that people will believe me when I say I'm a fan and I like the series, but also because I usually like to boost the positives of something before going into the negatives, so that it doesn't prematurely sour the perception of the people listening. That being said, let's start at the beginning with our favorite tough tootin' baby who will punch yo buns for fun, Asta. When you think of a shonen protagonist, what terms come to mind? Optimistic, hot-headed, never quits, good-natured, naive, eats too much, reckless, hardworking, never quits, a little rude, comic relief, a little dense, has a grand dream. And did I mention never quits? Shonen series have come a long way in the past decade. Even just in terms of series produced by Shonen Jump, lately we've been seeing a very diverse group of protagonists taking the spotlight. That being said, Asta is about as by the numbers as it gets. The boy is a walking stereotype and hits literally every single shonen protag checkbox. Orphan? Check. Wants to become Hokage? Check. Demon inside of him that gives him insane power boosts? Check. Like it's almost a satire at this point.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought you were starting with the positives. What the hell, bro?
I'm not finished.
I was going to say that despite being as cookie cutter as it gets, I still consider Asta to be a good character. The main character has a few major functions in a battle series. One is to set the tone, thematically and atmosphere-wise. So, if you compare how Naruto sets the stage for his series versus how we're introduced to Ichigo Kurosaki from Bleach, you can see a few key differences that go on to shape everything else. Naruto deals with themes of loneliness, bullying, and friendship, as well as giving us a point of view to understand the ninja world as a dangerous place where only the strong and skilled can survive and thrive. Meanwhile, Ichigo sets us up to study the themes of, oh no, wait, I got it. Themes of accepting death, overcoming hopelessness, and also friendship, I guess. The point is that the main character is someone who has to embody these themes in their actions and experiences and be the heart of the narrative. Applying that to Asta, we can see him championing the themes of Black Clover from episode 1. Just to give a quick rundown, Black Clover takes place in a magical medieval world where wealthy nobles are born with the strongest magic powers and live in the most affluent parts of the kingdom, while the commoners typically have weaker magic and live in the least desirable parts of the kingdom. Asta, being born not only as a commoner, but having absolutely no magic
And also being short as fuck.
is considered barely human by a lot of the nobles and even many of the commoners. Add that with being an orphan, as you do in anime, and he's pretty much subject to the worst treatment of anyone around. So because of this, he decides to make it his life's purpose to change the country for the better, so that people born like him aren't subject to the same persecution. And to do this, he must become the Hokage. I mean, the Pirate King. I mean the Wizard King. Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna become the Wizard King, you got it? There a problem with that?
And his first step is training day in and day out to make his body as strong as physically possible and defy all expectations everyone around him sets for him, even the family that raised him. Couple that with a sword that lets him cancel out other people's magic, and he's set to take on the world. And from this, the thematic core of Black Clover is born. Regardless of who you are or how you're born, if you work hard, you can achieve any goal. The other important part of Asta's character is that he constantly believes in and encourages those around him, to the point where he has a habit of making those around him better people just by leading by example. And it's not just talk no jutsu, even though there was a lot of that. It's just him fighting his hardest and even bringing levity to sad situations. Basically, him just being the change that he wants to see in the world, regardless of the fact that he isn't even the Wizard King yet. Hey y'all, so I'm just gonna stop for a sec and slightly dip into the negatives category here. Because after writing this all out, I realized that I don't really have a better place to put this bit. So I'm just gonna slap it in right here. I do think that the first half of the series falters in that there are hardly any challenges for Asta. His anti-magic sword is so busted and his physical stats are so high that no one can really challenge him. Regardless of the opponent, be it Mars or the goons that attack Sussy,
You sussy baka.
Village, or any grunts in between, the fights all go the same. The enemies think Asta is just some loser with no magic, while throwing out some cliche lines about how we live in a society, and then he pulls out his sword and claps them with the quickness. Then they go down with a big dumb expression on their face as they wonder what just happened. But luckily, after that undersea temple arc, the series starts to introduce many more strong enemies that make for more challenging combat situations, like the Queen of Witches and Ladros. Also, is it just me, or is the whole key thing feel like a bunch of bullshit? I mean, it's this amazing, wonderful, magical spider sense that he learns of and masters in the span of like 5 minutes. Also, if it's that easy to master, why are there only 2 characters in the entire series that know how to use it? That's a pretty awesome ability. You would think that more people would have stumbled upon it by now and it would be more commonplace. I don't know, bro. Am I the only one who thinks Ki is a load of baloney? Okay, mini rant over. But let me also just throw out how hilarious it is that after Asta joins, in the span of about 2 months, the Black Bull squad goes from being complete losers to literally the best squad in the kingdom. And y'all say Yuno gets too much clout. So just to hop off Asta's nuts now, let's talk about some of the supporting characters. There's such a wide array of characters, and surprisingly, you remember a lot of the ones with smaller roles in the series, even if you don't get to see them as much as the main cast. Now, I'm not saying the supporting cast is perfect, and I will get into more of the negatives, but right now, I'm just talking about the positives. Just like Asta is almost a parody of the shonen protagonist trope, his rival is also a walking stereotype of rival characters. Meet Yuno, Asta's first friend and rival in all things, both in terms of combat and finances apparently. He's cool, collected, a natural genius, and a lot of the times has a bad attitude. He even has black hair too. I'm sure I don't need to start dropping rival character examples, but he is indeed the Sasuke of the series. Is what I would be saying if he wasn't actually a deeply nuanced and well-written character. Yeah, I heard y'all about to go rage in the comments, but don't worry, I know that below the surface he's actually extremely different from the Sasuke archetype. And that's why I have him in the plus category in terms of characters. put it very simply, Yuno is Asta's absolute foil, polar opposites in terms of personality and natural ability. However, despite this, having grown up together and been through some of the same harrowing experiences, they came to respect each other thoroughly. And that's the first thing that caught my eye about him. Where you'd expect him to be very cold and unfeeling, all of his actions are actually born out of love and a desire to protect the people he cares about. And while he does sometimes push people away and respond apathetically to almost everything, when it comes to those he cares about, he doesn't hesitate to express that. If his hometown is in any kind of danger, he'll recklessly rush there to defend them, no matter what. Even for those outside of his family, he's developed connections with them out of an understanding of why they fight. He also shares the same dream with Asta, to become the Wizard King and bring peace and equality to the kingdom. Given all of these factors, I was able to connect with Yuno almost immediately, as opposed to the buffer period I needed to start liking characters like Yu Yu Hakusho's Hiei or Slam Dunk's Rukawa. The other interesting thing about Yuno is the fact that he's a Mary Sue, or in this case, a Gary Stu. And yet that actually plays into his place in the story rather than taking away from it. To put it simply, Yuno is the chosen one, given the strongest type of grimoire or spellbook, which appears only to a select few, the 4-leaf clover grimoire. He's chosen by a wind spirit and freely given her powers to control. And even, spoilers for the end of the series real quick, you have been warned, okay, the long-lost prince of an entire nation. Literally from the moment he was born, this kid was chosen by the universe to be the best and have everything. It's almost hilarious how lucky this dude is. Another contrast with Asta, who was born with absolutely nothing and set up to fail. Seeing this contrast between their life experiences is interesting, and getting to see Asta fight for every step up in his life and keep up with Yuno is all the more satisfying. A lot of the series' best character moments come from the Black Bull's Magic Knight Squad. They say everyone loves underdogs. Well, how about an entire team of them? In a society that is, as I said, very biased towards those of high status and ability, many people who don't stack up to the standards of those around them, or just victims of bad luck in the lottery of life, are rejected and abandoned by those around them. Yami, who was ostracized for the crime of being Asian, knows this better than anyone. But after finally being given a chance to show what he's made of by the then squad captain, Julius Novachrono, he found his place in the Magic Knights. And wanting to pay it forward upon becoming a captain himself, he made it his mission to make his squad, the Black Bulls, a home for all the talented rejects in the Clover Kingdom. Be you poor, a convict, bedridden, antisocial, born without magic, actually insane, or anything else in between, if you have it in you to try, Yami can find a place for you on this team. And there, you can be encouraged to grow and become stronger. You can have the chance to shine that you never got elsewhere. In the Black Bulls, we see the members put their lives on the line to protect each other, even if that's not naturally who they are. That's just how much they pull each other up. There's a comment on YouTube that I saw not too long ago that I think really summarizes this team dynamic. Yami's only requirement for joining the Black Bulls is, you gotta pull up. And pull up they do. I could go on and on about different characters that stand out to me in the series, from Yami's on-point commentary about how ridiculous anime characters look, to Finral's absolute glow-up. But instead, I want to talk about something else that represents the positives of the show and the world itself. Now, I'll be the first to let people know that I don't like medieval fantasy settings in general. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Sonic and the Black Knight, it's just not my cup of tea. I don't know what it is, but overall, I'm way more of a futuristic sci-fi person. That said, that didn't take away from my experience with this series, and I attribute that to the fact that they don't focus too heavily on that aspect of things for the most part, but also because they add so much personality to it that it feels like it's in a lane of its own. From the massive amount of creative magic abilities there are, to the vast and varied environments that the characters get to interact with, there's just no time for you to get bored of the Castletown hub world. And trust me, there's a lot of eye-catching magic in this universe. From cool lightning armor magic to world tree magic to weird compass magic to freaking rewriting fate magic, you're almost guaranteed to come across a character and say, wow, I wish I had their abilities. One of the most important parts of a good power system is just to have abilities that are satisfying to see in action, and Black Clover delivers. One of my favorite parts of the series is Asta, Finral, and Vanessa taking on Veto at the Undersea Temple. Vanessa and Finral combine their spatial magic and string magic to give Asta enhanced mobility and teleportation. This allows him to compete with a much stronger and faster opponent and hold out to get the win in the end. I love seeing creative uses of abilities like this. It makes the character's teamwork feel so much richer and just expands the possibilities of the magic system even further. Okay, so now that you guys know that I meant it when I said I like this series, I'm about to slander the hell out of it, so get ready. The negatives of Black Clover are many and constant. Never have I been more quickly taken out of a moment that I was enjoying by cringy anime bullcrap than when watching this anime.
Would they really be down to play Dollhouse right now? I mean, they did almost just die. I don't know about that one, bro.
I know I just spent a few minutes talking about why the characters in the series are awesome, but that actually only applies to a handful of characters in the series. This isn't like One Piece, where there are a ton of deep and memorable characters on every adventure the crew takes. In Black Clover, much of the supporting cast amounts to either forgettable or downright annoying. Charmy has had some solid moments during her screen time. Her becoming the source of infinite magic by cooking for the Black Bulls, making them essentially unstoppable, is pretty great. But literally 95% of her screen time is dedicated to food. She's constantly eating food, constantly talking about food. She won't do anything if it doesn't revolve around food. Even if the situation can't possibly have anything to do with food, she'll find a way to halt the plot with food-related shenanigans. It was cute at first, but then when I realized that they took a joke character and added her to the main plot without giving her an actual arc, I found myself quickly over her. As a side note, for some reason I was a little mad at the point when she ate so much that she became overweight in her little chibi form, but then when she reverted back to her serious form, they didn't even have the guts to let her stay overweight. She was immediately back to having a perfect figure for some reason, and I don't know, it just felt a little insulting somehow. I don't want to get too deep into that, but that was just something that stood out to me. As for the other characters, it goes from cutting things to experimenting on people to being royalty. So many characters are absolutely obsessed with something, and for some of them we see so little of them that it doesn't become an annoyance, or they have a good number of other character traits that make them more well-rounded. But this lazy character writing is something that holds the series back from being more than just another shonen series. The next thing we need to talk about is the tone of the series. What tone is Black Clover aiming for? Being in Shonen Jump, it's obviously meant to be enjoyed by kids and young teens. However, every now and then it'll dip into some dark territory that you wouldn't expect it to get into. Genocide, child trafficking, physical abuse, political strife, the list goes on. And yeah, anime aimed at youth are known to cover deeper and more realistic topics than Western media aimed at the same youth. But the series feels like it's struggling to present these tough moments and also keep kids on board. I'm sure there are people who notice this, but Black Clover has a problem with killing off characters. There are a few too many times where a character is quote-unquote killed off, just to be revived shortly after. The first time I can remember this sticking out to me is the Saving the Children arc, where several children, including Gauch's sister Mary, are kidnapped by criminals who want to steal the latent magic from said children and sell it for money or something. This arc serves to add backstory and characterization for Gauch, who up until that point had mostly been a quirky background character.
Very quirky indeed.
And towards the end of it, the woman who had been looking after Gauch's sister and the children, Sister Teresa, joins the fight and starts kicking major booty, as she was formerly a top-tier magic knight and is indeed about that life.
Welcome, Launch!
But things get tricky when she's severely wounded in the fight and is about to die. Now, most anime would have just killed her off at that point, but instead, Black Clover had it so that she gets to the healers just in time and pulls through. They even have a little fun with it, assuming that we think she's dead, and having her give this long-winded speech on the operating table, followed by a dramatic passing away, only to have her wake up and reveal that she's just taken a nap. I genuinely like this self-aware humor of Black Clover. It's great for flipping expectations on their head and elevating the comedy past where shonen series usually take it. And I was really happy that Teresa was still alive and that the story had a happy ending. But unfortunately, this instance of a character cheating death so miraculously wasn't just a fake out. It was the beginning of a pattern. And I'm not just talking about Finral coming back from his brother scraping some meat off his bones. I'm talking much more blatant stuff. The most egregious example coming to mind is during the Clover Kingdom's battle against the Midnight Sun, where the Wizard King faces off against the Midnight Sun's leader, Licht. After a long and amazingly fought battle, Licht realizes that he can't win by fighting fair against Julius Novachrono, an absolute weapon of a man. Like, seriously, when we finally get to see this dude fight, literally the first thing he does is just freaking delete 2 people. Like,
What the hell, dude?
anyway, Licht uses an attack that will rain blades of light on every single person in the kingdom. Backed into a corner, Julius is forced to stop and reverse time all around the kingdom, stopping the blades just before they can hit and saving every single person in the entire kingdom. And with that, Julius had used up just about all of his magic, leaving him at the mercy of Licht, who unfortunately woke up and chose violence that day. Now, this fight hit me hard for a lot of reasons. Number 1, and 2, it showed that the Wizard King, unlike the actual king, or most of the Clover Kingdom nobles, genuinely cared about every single person he ruled over, to the point where he would give up his life to protect them. And that's exactly what he did, entrusting his dream of peace and equality to his old protege and good friend Yami. So many things left unsaid, so many people feeling a deep and profound loss in this battle, just as the elves did. A void that can never truly be. Psych, he's still alive because he used a super secret spell just before he died to keep himself alive and make himself into a little baby man. Like, what type of Disney ass shit is this? What was intriguing about this fight, aside from was that it came as a consequence of the Golden Dawn captain, William Vanjance's choice, or lack of choices, in choosing between his beloved mentor or his best friend, knowing that no matter who wins, he's going to lose someone extremely precious to him. How would Yami react to knowing William's actions, having inherited Julius's life work? What would become of the Magic Knights now that they lost such critical leadership? How would Asta and Yuno process the death of their hero? Well, we'll never know because Julius is still alive, and aside from losing his powers, there were hardly any consequences to face. Julius is mentally intact and capable, the public has no idea anything has changed, and all the squads are back in working order. And what's worse is that there's not even anything for Julius to really do now. He's just this talking head who coordinates everyone, but isn't involved in any other way. He might as well be a ghost of some kind, because they basically killed him without actually accepting the consequences of killing him.
Spoilers for the end of the series. Skip here as you don't want to be spoiled.
Hell, they even killed Yuno before immediately bringing him and half his teammates back to life using their captain's magic. Which, dude, what the fuck? So, Vengeance just randomly has a spell called Budding of Yggdrasil that can just bring like a dozen people back from mortal wounds? The hell is he doing fighting on the front lines? This man should be in the medical ward saving lives. It took the best doctor in the entire kingdom, Owen, like a week to fix Finral. One dude who had bad injuries. This man Vengeance had a goddamn phoenix down up his sleeve and never bothered to use it up until now? Do you see what I mean when I said this series feels like it's for kids? We'll believe there are grave consequences around the corner, but in the end, it'll just be for shock value. They kill most of the Golden Dawn just to bring them back immediately. And yeah, some members stay dead, but they're mostly bit part characters, and except a couple of them, they don't even have names. It would be one thing if Black Clover was actually aimed exclusively at children, like Digimon or Yu-Gi-Oh! But then again, Digimon actually has permadeath, so I don't know. Either way, what I'm saying is that Black Clover aims for a very wide audience and doesn't walk the line between all of them very well, usually slipping into the kiddie corner when things get tough. So what else is there to talk about now? You can bet your bottom dollar that I have a handful of other grievances to aim at the series. I could talk a bit about the at times lackluster animation.
What the hell is even that?
But I feel that's a bit unfair given the number of quality episodes we've gotten in comparison to the length of the series.
Or we could talk about how all the openings got fucking spoilers in them.
So how about this? Let's talk about the women of Black Clover. I'm struggling to remember if in all my years of watching anime, I've ever come across female characters as unbearable as the ones that I've seen here in Black Clover. Now, if you don't feel this way about the series, you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, Noelle started out pretty bad, but she gets way better as time goes on, and Vanessa and Gray are pretty good too. And I would say that's true, but oh my sweet summer child, I wish Noelle was as bad as it gets. Oh man, do I wish. In most media, female characters tend to get the short end of the stick. I think this is common knowledge, but there's a pretty big trend of female characters not really being characters, but more like items, to be won or lost by male characters, and at times assist in a male character's journey without having any journey of their own. Now, before I start losing y'all, I'm not saying that Black Clover is this bad. Obviously, there are a ton of competent female characters in the series that not only pull their weight, but are compelling in their own right. Vanessa is definitely up there in terms of solid character building. And Marioliona Vermilion is one of my favorite characters in the entire series just off of pure badassery. I do love my Kenpachi types, but there is a serious issue with the other female characters in the show. Can you guess what it is? Well, I can't hear you, so if you answered, you're weird. Anyway, the answer is romance. When you look at most of the female characters in Black Clover, there's something that they all have in common, and it's having crushes on a guy. Vanessa and Charlotte are into Yami, Charmy, Belle, and like half of the Golden Dawn are into Yuno, Gray is into Gosh, I guess, and Noelle, Mimosa, and the manic pixie queen herself, Sally, are into Asta. And there are maybe even more that I'm forgetting. Characters being romantically interested in other characters is obviously completely fine, but not when that's used as a crutch. In Black Clover, there's a troubling theme of women getting all their motivation and character development from the boys that they like. They have a problem or character flaw that's more or less solved by a guy being nice to them, and somehow this gives them the power to keep fighting. With the exception of Charmy, because as I said, she has no development, and Nero, because she's more focused on living up to her present day relationships, these characters started their journeys just because a guy told them to. And yes, many of them go on to operate of their own volition, but that doesn't change the fact that it's strange to have so many characters use this exact same pattern. For both Vanessa and Charlotte, Yami breaks into their house and is like, hey, you look sad, get your life together. And then boom, motivated. They have literally the same character moment with the same guy. That's ridiculous. Speaking of Charlotte, can I rant a little about how she and Soul are literally the worst thing in Black Clover? Remember how I said earlier that some characters have overused catchphrases? There are none so ear-grating as the routine these two have to put on every time they're on screen together, regardless of the situation. If I have to listen to, sis, call me captain, okay sis, one more damn time, I'm gonna yeet my laptop off a bridge. Multiple times per episode, every time they're on screen together. Did the mangaka actually think that this was cute or funny in the slightest? The showrunners made the smart choice to stop having Asta scream every single line. But they couldn't cut the cis stuff out at all? Does Yuki Tabata think that this is what a team of strong women would look like? Basing their entire identity around not liking men and being stuck up? He has other good female characters in the series, so why make these, who are supposed to represent a strong female presence, so insufferable?
Listen, she's being controlled by some kind of magic. It's not her.
Hey, I refuse to take orders from men, forget it!
Is this really the time to be worried about that kind of crap?
To the point that Soul would waste time in a life or death situation just to refuse taking orders from a man. Newsflash, they all take orders from a man who takes orders from another man. They've already lost that battle. Why are they so stupid? As you can tell, I've had to bottle this up for a long time, as I try not to dump my ramblings onto my unsuspecting friends. It's just so frustrating to see such uninteresting and outdated material put into a series that otherwise defies stereotypes and has so much self-awareness. I don't think anyone needs to be woke or a feminist to see the shortcomings with character writing this bad and want better for the female characters, especially since we know how good they can be. Man, all I want is to avoid adding more Sakura Harunos to the world. My favorite part of Black Clover is something pretty simple, and not exclusive to Black Clover at all. I love the theme of trying to understand others, be they friend or foe. This is a driving force for Asta's actions in the series, and I think that's a really strong motivation that can go a long way. It's something you'd expect to see in the person who wants to rule a country one day. From the story of the elves to the demon living inside of him, Asta, being the hot-headed shonen anime protag he is, putting down his weapon in the middle of a fight and asking the enemy to help him understand what they need, is pretty great in my opinion. In most series, they would fight until the opponent is bloody and barely conscious before trying to have a heart-to-heart, but Asta isn't afraid to do it while they're still at full power, and I respect that.
Just like how I respect how broad he got after the time skip. Like, come on, that boy big.
So that's why I can say that Black Clover is an amazing series with so much to offer. And I can also say it's full of crap that I hate with a passion and would like to change. Do I expect a lot of people to agree with my take on Black Clover? To a degree, but not entirely. Do I think that Black Clover is more bad than good? Nope, or else I wouldn't have bothered finishing it. Do I think Black Clover is peak Shonen Jump? There are a whole lot of much stronger contenders out there right now, and this series will only take up as much space as it's allowed by its peers. While I don't think it's up there with the best of the best, I do hope that people remember it for years to come. I think Black Clover showcases some of the best things that shonen battle anime have to offer, and that's worth hanging on to. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my second ever video essay. There were some good impressions of my first one, covering what anime should be recommended to non-anime watchers, and I wanted to come back and see what else I can offer the people who liked it. So would anyone care to see me keep doing reviews or other similar topics like this? Let me know in the comments down below, and please subscribe and support the channel if you are so inclined. I know the channel is a bit of a grab bag right now, but I'm slowly finding my groove with all of it. Alright, have a good one. Peace!